This story begins at a company that follows these employee slogans. Results above all. Work without results is worthless. If you don't want to work, leave before you complain, and pursue self-improvement. Orders often require everything to be ready by morning. Managers often threaten to fire employees and say there is a line of people ready to replace them. The company runs a sweatshop system, and employees often have to sleep at their workplaces. William wakes up in a cold sweat and can't tell if he was dreaming. He overslept again and groggily starts getting ready for work. Along the way, his co-workers greeted him, and one, an older man with a thick beard, asked if William had been late to work again the day before. MC said a report had to be drawn up because of Chairman Barnett's instructions. At his workplace, the bearded man gives William another order from the Avert family. William, thank you for this. Surprised by how much the clients love them, the bearded man stresses that taking extra orders is fine. But if the month's main plan isn't met, it will cause problems with the chairman. When colleagues responsible for the plan and assignments look at the next figures, they understand these plans are completely unattainable. William knows the situation and understands what's really going on. Immersed in his work, MC accepts another order for a chair that needs restoring, and when William inspects it, he is outraged by the crude repairs someone else made. MC knows the chair comes from Miguel's village and belonged to Jess's grandmother, who reported that her knitting chair was broken. After inspecting the product, William decides to replace the handrails, round their edges, and make the armrest a bit more comfortable for the hands. Briefly, William works for Barnett, one of the largest trading companies in their kingdom of Doll, which trades a wide range of goods from spoons to weapons, and serves clients from villagers to aristocrats. William works for this company as a craftsman because his only skill is craftsmanship, and crafting is a common activity in the kingdom. With so many masters like William, he has nowhere else to go but here and feels like he's just drifting with the river's current. The bearded man says he's ready, hands the repaired chair to the delivery department for transport, and the goods are loaded onto horse-drawn carts for direct delivery to customers. After the words, "Don't be late," the cards head out quickly to their addresses, and the trading company has grown significantly because of its fast logistics. A voice echoes through the company, urging you to work harder because your products will enrich the trading house. William can tell by the voice that Chairman Barnett is starting his workstation rounds. Moving closer, he shouts, "Hey, William!" The MC turns and the chairman standing nearby says William failed to meet the plan again this month. The MC asks for forgiveness. The chairman asks whether the documents he requested yesterday are ready, demands a faster reply, and reminds him that replacing anyone is no problem. William remembers something. William remembers he's dead. Once employed by a black company, he died from overwork. He is alive now, so his reincarnation has occurred. The chairman's voice calling, "Damn it, William, bring the documents," brings MC back to reality. All right, I'm on my way," William replies and hurries to get the documents ready. They are already in the chairman's office. Barnett reviews the documents and asks about the customer base and trends. William confirms he has. Meanwhile, looking at Barnett's twisted, unhappy face, he realizes he looks exactly like his boss from a past life. Barnett looks up, smiles, and announces that William is fired. Confused, MC asks again how that is possible. Barnett says his son will take over both the position and the business. The chairman thanks William for his service. "William, tell me what all this means." Chairman Barnett can't calm down. The chairman claims William is too slow and has failed to meet production targets. The company has no use for such worthless craftsmen, Barnett adds. MC defends himself, saying he gives clients what they truly need. Barnett says customers will not pay for something that does not actually exist. Buyers do not demand quality and will take what is in stock. We must stick to the slogan, cheaper, faster, and in larger quantities than anywhere else. The chairman concludes by saying, "That's it." William is stunned by the decision. Barnett suggests MC pack his things and leave if everything is clear. The chairman turns to his son and asks him to start. But he must remember that William's regular customers were the company's wealthiest and most valuable clients, Barnett continues. For some reason, Williams's pieces sold quickly despite being almost identical to others. Williams works too slowly and cannot get the most from wealthy clients. The chairman asks his son to take the vacant position and extract as much money as possible from the rich. Barnett says valuable clients attract other valuable clients and his son should succeed. The son replies, "Don't worry, Dad." William steps out of the chairman's office and exhales sharply walking down the hallway, he remembers which personal items to collect. In the office, William starts getting ready and first takes the dusty Shinjo, Ristake's sacred staff, from the top shelf of the cabinets. The leader of an S-rank adventurer group once gave it to him, and it's a rare artifact that lets its user control the magic of all elements. William kept it in case he ever needed it, but he decided magic wasn't for him, so he never used it. William thinks about the word magic, but his rebirth is the real magic, possible only in a world where magic exists. When William returns home, he hears the familiar pie dash of Rudy the eagle owl greeting him. A herd friend sits on William's hand as the main character turns to the owl, realizing the owl has probably been waiting a long time and wondering what to do next. William reflects. Even after being reborn in another world, he once again ended up in the office of some scoundrels and nearly followed the same path. Tired of that life, he decides to live differently from now on. Packing his things and taking Ristak and Rudy's sacred staff, he sets out determined to enjoy life to the fullest and make the most of the second chance fate gave him. Before he leaves, William says goodbye to his regular customers, and while he's at it, he takes the chair and visits Grandma Jess. This is the first step toward his new life. As planned, William first visits Grandma Jess. He gives her the restored chair and wishes her good health. At the same time, he says goodbye to all his neighbors. The Averg family is next in line. You will be unable to fulfill any more orders and must apologize for this. Arriving at the Averg family castle, William announces he has written a letter of resignation and can no longer carry out orders. The family head is crushed by the news, saying he cannot manage without William and will simply disappear, and MC apologizes, saying he is very sorry and will work in William's place. The family head says the last one in is Barnett's son, and that he has never heard anything useful about him. Earlier, he served in the Night Order to attract more attention from women. That role involved many encounters with women and led to his expulsion. After that, he joined his father's trading company. Hediver says William's work is clearly different from other masters. Even when the forms look similar, every detail gets painstaking attention. William focuses on the future owner of each piece. This sword bought from William is an example of that confirmation. The head says it was made to fit the future owner's features, with a thoughtful handle and balanced weight. William can outdo any blacksmith in skill, Avert says admiringly. MC replies that he forged this exceptional sword after studying under a master he met. The chapter says that, besides liking William's work, he did not try to win the trust of his house, Averk, and he liked William's sincerity. He and his family regret that further cooperation is not possible. William, thank you for your generous words. The bird tilts its head as if trying to figure out what William plans to do next. MC begins to answer, hesitates, then walks away along the road. At that moment, the father is heard as the daughter of the family enters the room. She introduces herself as a limit. The father asks his daughter again whether she heard the conversation with William. EMC's next destination is the Kingdom of Murkies. William arrives and realizes he hasn't been here in a long time. At the Murkies' castle, Guri, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, meets William, furious that William has returned after a long absence and bringing the unpleasant news that they are leaving the trade guild and that a successor has been chosen. William understands a minister's reaction and wonders how many more times he will have to see the same scene. MC says he came not only to bring news, but also to make a request. The minister asks what the request is. William explains he owns a mountain hut near the capital in the village of Bergen and wants to open a workshop there. The minister is interested in a workshop in their country, and William says he wants to take his time setting it up at first. The minister immediately grants firm approval, pleased that a master as talented as William will live in their country. The minister promises to send an approval letter to the village of Bergen and says he will work hard without holding back, and William responds with his deepest gratitude. At last, William and Rudy arrive at a village near the hut, and William says this will be the start of their new life. The hut is a small house, poorly put together from boards and now leaning with age, with parts of the roof fallen off and clearly in need of repair, and Rudy accepts the new shelter without much enthusiasm. William stands in front of the house and thinks the hut is so-so, but a decent place to start, and the headman of Bergen Village has already given permission. MC says he is a craftsman and can clean the house himself. After a long journey today, I need a quick dinner and then to go to bed. At dawn, William is still sleeping soundly when someone knocks on the door. Without getting out of bed, he asks who is there and gets only silence. Stepping up to the door, he opens it slightly. A beautiful blonde stands before him and says, "Good morning, William." And the MC, confused and surprised, replies, "Say that again, Mrs. Limit." William can't figure out how the beautiful woman ended up here. Limit says she wants to make a fidelity pact with him starting today. William asked again, unable to believe what he had just heard. MC's second life began in a completely unexpected way. Her eyes sparkle with inspiration as she says she has found him. MC asks once more what she's doing here. Limit begins to explain that after William left, Averg House was unhappy with both the Barnett Trading Company and the newest manager. Limit says their family has ended its contract with Barnett. Hearing this, MC's eyes bulged, his mouth opened, and he could only utter one word, "What?" While the witnesses to the conversation between William and Limit were the mistress's maids, standing at a distance behind her, and Rudy, watching from the roof of the hut. A couple of days ago, the Averg family arrived at the Barnett Company and were greeted by Mr. Barnett and his son, who said that from now on everyone at Barnett will do their best to meet all requests. Entering last, he cast a sly glance at the Averg family and addressed Mrs. Limit with careful politeness, saying he was glad to meet them for the first time. Taking the lady's right hand, he drew it closer and kissed it, saying he was last in Barnett, and nice to meet him. And Limit was so embarrassed and confused she could only giggle. The Averg family was clearly unhappy with how the meeting was going. His unhappiness showed in his gaze and facial expressions. Limit was visibly upset as well. Barnett said the order was ready and that as the last one in, he carried it out himself. Workers brought in boxes containing pack doors. Finally, an order was presented that included cuirasses for the personal guard of the House of Averg. The Averg family took the cuirass in their hands and examined the product. With a serious, focused look, he asked whether Chairman Barnett had checked the final finishing, and Barnett replied in good spirits, "Yes, of course." Williams's development allowed the cuirass to be adjusted to the owner's body. The head of Averg kept speaking as he carefully examined the finished product. This cuirass was not adjustable and pressed against the arm. "You can't swing a sword normally with it," he added. Limit glanced briefly at her father and felt his indignation. Soldiers from House of Erg are like family to him. Keeping his voice raised, he continued speaking. He would not endanger them by arming them with crude, one-sided equipment. The head of Averg has already said angrily that he sees neither a sincere attitude to work nor the honesty expected from a weapons supplier, and he finds the treatment of his daughter completely unacceptable. At last he turned completely white and his eyes looked sad. The head of Averg announced he was terminating the contract. William listens to the story in amazement. His pupils widened dramatically. Limit said that, after all this, the future of the House of Averba Rose was still uncertain, and after thinking it over, she decided to sign an exclusive contract with William, while Minister Gorey suggested a location. "Okay," William responds after listening to the whole story. Limit says working under William's current conditions is impossible. MC's gaze drops after assessing the lady. Limit says cheerfully she is here to help and wants them to continue their collaboration. William wonders what she'll do. Limit replies, his father has given permission. The MC explains what that means. She will speak if William is okay with it. "Everyone wants to live here," the maids accompanying their mistress say in unison. William's jaw drops and his eyes go wide in surprise. Yet she had always dreamed of a life like that, says Limit, and begins to whirl in the dance with great pleasure. A maid said the mistress had always wanted an adventurer's life, and that is why it happened. A long-haired girl in formal clothes approaches the MC and says, "Mr. William, we haven't seen each other for a long time." She is Agnes, the senior maid in the Avert house. William is surprised to see her, and she says the head of the family ordered her to accompany the young lady. Agnes says the young woman was very worried about Mr. William when he left the company, and now she is overjoyed to have met him again. While they talked, the maids busied themselves unloading the luggage that had arrived with them on carts. Agnes then explains that the Averg family will of course support Mr. William, but they also want to help. William thanks them, but he prefers to work diligently and quietly live a second life, and he says these words with a touching look as he closes his eyes. "What do you mean?" Agust asks wearily. "No, nothing," William answers, then turns and leaves, thinking how beautiful the morning is. That's how things were, and he planned to live a quiet life. Shouts nearby. Pull. The major is starting to set up the 10 camp. They bring inspiration and passion to their work. A sparkle brightens William's dull eyes and a smile spreads across his face. Looking back over his working years, MC does not remember any times when he worked in a group. Recognizing his limits as the maids celebrate another tent being set up, he decides to try living this life differently. William was lost in his dreams when Limit could not hold back and fell to the ground with another tint and a piercing scream. The maids tried to help her but could only scream in surprise. Getting up, she thinks that setting up a tent is also not an easy task. William approaches them, saying 5 people will be cramped in the tent and that it's dangerous to spend the night outside. He continues while Limit tries to object. William steps closer, looks at her, and says that since Mr. Arverg has given his consent, and Mrs. Limit is so inclined then. MC asks with feeling what everyone thinks about moving into his cabin together, saying he is about to renovate it and can add extra rooms. The offer was unexpected but pleasant for Limit, and her eyes widened noticeably. She asks because she doesn't want to burden William and worries they will get in the way. MC winks his left eye and replies cheerfully that it's always more fun with a big group, and they'll be like a real team of adventurers. William says the expansion will need a lot of materials and asks for help. Everyone agrees. The surrounding area was wooded, and after a short time they had prepared a substantial amount of construction timber, which William inspected and said was more than enough. With everything ready, Williams began work with great enthusiasm. Inspecting the hut, he realizes that when everything is falling apart, it's time to repair, not expand. First, the MC removes all destroyed and unusable parts of the building. Next, the structure is reinforced. Limit and the Mays watch William at work with admiration. At the hut's window, she gazes and drifts into her memories. Limit remembers. She was preparing for an important family event with help from her maid, Agnes. Limit was not in the mood. Agnes told her not to sulk. Limit was a beauty. With that expression, all her charm would be lost. Try to limit objections, Agnes continued. This evening's reception is important because a groom will be chosen for her. Schmidt sat humbly before the mirror while Agnes kept talking, telling her not to think of running away again like she had before, and she was very offended. Limit knew she was the only daughter in the Avert family. At social events, nobles court her to gain the Avert family's power through her father, and no one really cares about her personally. As he continued to remember his past, a voice behind him said, "I brought an evening dress for you. It's ready." She turns and is surprised to see William standing in front of her. Limit tries on the dress immediately and delights in her reflection as Agnes and William adjust and hem it, and William asks how Lady Limit feels. William explains that the lady often gestures while talking, so he made sure the embroidery on the cuffs looked spectacular when she moved. As they study the dress cuffs, William explains the image on the cuff is a fairy flower that symbolizes the flight of fantasy, purity, and freedom, and represents Tenbakoku. William adds that he thought it was perfect for her, and Limit looks at him with a sparkle in her eyes. Only a voice is heard, that's it. Limit revisiting pleasant memories. Ahead of her, a new window and a fully renovated hut make the place unrecognizable. William cheerfully sets addressing Limit, saying their mansion is still far away, but this is fine for an overnight stay. The lady disagrees and says it is a great haven for adventures. It is breathtaking. The hut has been completely transformed, sparkling with fresh paint and smelling of new building materials. It is no longer a decrepit building. William, Limit, and the maids enter the renovated hut, and the MC inspects the room, saying it would be nice to add furniture and other items to make it a real base. Limit is clearly pleased and thanks William, smiling with her eyes narrowed in pleasure. The MC says he's glad it's time for dinner. Everyone has been working so hard they haven't had lunch. He says there's a river nearby where he thinks you can catch fish. Limit held her face in her hands and thought. Having never gone fishing but wanting to try, she actively supported the proposal. William suggests cutting some tree branches to make your own fishing rods. They all head to the riverbank to fish. Agnes is the first to show her skills, confidently handling the fishing rod and fish net, while the other maids watch her with great enthusiasm. William notices, too, that Agnes is excellent at fishing. Startled, Limit grabbed the rod with both hands and screamed. William was bitten. The MC replies calmly. Mrs. Limit gently pulled you toward her. Inexperience causes the fish to jump off the hook. William steps closer to the upset woman and reassures her. Madam, Next time, everything will definitely work out. Turning to William, she makes a request and he asks her to clarify the topic. Limit stands in front of William while shyly looks down and asks him to stop addressing her so formally. MC looks confused. The lady continues, pointing out she is younger than William and that it would be better if he started addressing her as an equal, and MC tries to object. Limit can't take it anymore and shouts hysterically that from now on, any form of address using the word you is prohibited. William scratches the back of his head with a grin and says it's clear. The woman demands to be called by her first name. Embarrassed after hesitating, MC says the word limit. After he finishes, his mistress praises him. You can hear fish splashing in the river. Rudy says the fish are biting, so we need to act. William and Limit take the rod together and MC advises how to carefully pull out the bite. Elsewhere, Ari Tachibana, leader of the adventure group Moonlight, is on another hunt. A fragile but nimble young adventurer with long dark hair and a bandage over her right eye. Her weapon is the ice whip. The adventurers with her confirm she knocked out the royal Heracross. A large group of adventurers greets her when she returns home, and they are very happy not only about her return but also about the decent amount of resources she brought back from the hot. Laston joins the others in greeting and approaches Mrs. Tachibana to ask how much she liked the whip he made. A woman walks past without looking at him. He keeps checking whether his product is not gorgeous, because he used the skin of the Amoa sea crocodile. He also asks about combat boots next time and finally shows off his, boasting they are made of red deerskin. He regrets getting his boots so dirty, but this place is awful. Lasting can't calm down and keeps trying to find out whether the lady liked his products, because he did not come all this way for nothing. At last he hears Erie's sharp reply, "This whip won't do." Lastly, they are simply taken aback by this. Hands the whip to the last person and says, the attack power has not increased and is completely lacking in power. She adds something else, looking thoughtful and serious, and says this is by no means William's level, not at all, because she doesn't feel the same power as before. Lastin, looking down, wonders what makes these whips different. Just then, one of the adventurers approaches and says a letter has arrived for Erie, as specified by Erie. The messenger clarifies from the House of a Virgin, a castle owned by the Verge family. A meeting is scheduled for this evening. Meanwhile, William and Limit enjoy fishing and use their time well. A fist slams the table in the Barnett Company office as Mr. Barnett, at his desk, shouts in furious anger, demanding to know what is happening and why clients are breaking their contracts with our guild one after another. Yelling at the employees standing before him with bowed heads, he calls out to Idle and demands an explanation. Laston enters and addresses him. He goes on to say the leader of the Moonlight Group, a former client of William, recently received a letter from the Verge House which may be plotting against them. What makes Mr. Barnett even more furious is that he fears she is up to something behind our backs. Barnett shouts that he will not allow him to act as he pleases and demands an immediate, thorough investigation of all the information. Erie imagines she's already walking through the corridors of the Avert Palace on her way to a business meeting. She enters the conference room, sees 3 others, and Mr. Freed announces they are all assembled. Mr. Reverb opens the meeting by saying he has gathered all of William's most influential clients from different fields. Everyone in the room listens closely as Freed continues to report the results of his investigation. He insists keeping William in the shadows any longer would waste a rare talent. At first glance, his work looks simple, but each piece is planned down to the smallest detail, made with the client's needs in mind and both comfortable and beautiful. Mr. Freed says everyone needs him, so he asks for support to provide the necessary assistance. Mr. Saxon is a gray-haired elder with a thick beard and mustache who leads the foggy green island, and Fried asks where he stands on the situation, to which Mr. Saxon replies that he highly values William's work and is open to helping him because William is a good man. William is a nice guy and keeps going because his daughter, who has a good eye for people, likes him, so he is probably a good person. That seems to be the case, Mr. Saxon, Fried says with a mysterious smile. Fried asked his next interlocutor, Mr. Tennis, what the legendary blacksmith would make of the situation, since rumors said he had taught William blacksmithing. It was a sight to behold watching him work so enthusiastically, Tennis says. William is a venerable, gray-haired man who looks wise from life, with an unshaven, untidy face and rather long eyebrows, and his hair is tied in a bun at the back of his head. Tennis adds that William has a talent for blacksmithing, enjoys making things, and Tennis wants to help him develop further. "And what does Eri Tachibona think?" he asked the tennis player sitting next to him. Eri says William made her main weapon. She's never seen anything better, and where he went remains a big question to her. Mr. Fried, in a calm, businesslike way, suggests moving on to the main topic and explains that some time ago William came to say goodbye before leaving. Mr. Averg asked what William planned next, and William said he had a request for the Minister of Foreign Affairs, asking him to read from the Kingdom of Murkies. Mr. Saxon asks whether Mr. Gory might know his current location, and Mr. Averg answers yes. Unable to leave home, he asked his daughter Limit to watch over William and follow him through life. Limit then set out on a journey. She's an adult now. It's time for her to travel. Fried continues with feeling. At those words, Aries' gaze shifted and seemed lost in thought. Tennis thinks he gave his daughter away. Saxon starts looking sideways at Fried with a serious, dissatisfied expression. Aerie concludes they moved around her. Saxon stutters and says he remembered urgent matters. He asks for forgiveness and leaves the meeting. Tennis admits he completely forgot he needed to pass the assignment to his granddaughter. Old age brings no joy. He ends the conversation and departs. Erie says she also cannot stay any longer, and everyone leaves the palace together. Fried sits alone at the table, propping his face on his hand and closing his eyes, convinced everyone is thinking the same thing. At that moment in William's hut, Limit sips a cup of aromatic tea and asks William what happened. Busy preparing dinner, he picks up a jar of spices, looks inside, and says they need to buy spices because there are more of them and he wants more variety in their food. William says they will go shopping today and then take a short ride to the port town of Bart. Limit asks if they will ride in her carriage, then says they will ask someone in the village of Bergen to look after her, and keeps speaking as a squeak sounds and Rudy turns to them. Before their eyes, Rudy starts growing and squealing with happiness. William explains that Rudy can become so huge that he can lift people on himself. Limit says, "Lovely bird." Pat pats Rudy on the head with great pleasure. The whole company settled comfortably on Rudy's back and took off. After a short while, William said he could already see and told everyone to look. On the horizon, the coast and the port town of Barth came into view. After landing successfully, the entire friendly company is in high spirits as they enter a city of mostly small one-story buildings with a port right in town and fishing boats lining the shore. They are also set on land along the shore. The first thing everyone does is go to the city market and find it livelier. William hears a voice behind him say, "Hello, William. How old are you?" MC turns around. A 50-year-old man stands in front of him, dark-haired with a thick beard and mustache. He introduces himself cheerfully as Mayor Markham and asks if this is his fiancée, while continuing to look at his fellow travel William. William stops Markham. The MC asks them not to joke because he is with the daughter of the Avert family. Surprised, Averg shouts to Markham, apologizing for his rudeness and asking how William ended up involved with her, then leans close and whispers the question again, while MC says it's a whole story. William, surprised, says the market is very lively. Perhaps something has changed in the city since his last visit. Markham replies that deposits of magic ore have been discovered near the city. More people and shops are coming, and businesses are growing. William should consider opening his own shop. Ask Markham. The unexpected question makes MC stop and think. Limiting who accompanies him, she immediately lights up at the idea and tells William it's a great idea and they should start their own business, but William replies calmly, no. As Markham says goodbye, he tells William to consider the proposal and expresses confidence it will succeed because Markham can make it happen. William tries to think of something that will sell well, considers what the locals want to buy, and even closes his eyes while straining his brain to find an idea. A thought suddenly occurs to him. He came to buy groceries today, and now they are all wandering around the city market together. Now they're walking happily with bags full of various goods. Limit says they have bought quite a lot of vegetables. William notes that in time they will be able to plow the land near the house and start a vegetable garden. Limit says cheerfully. MC thanks him but warns that without experience, even using a hoe is dangerous and offers to rely on his own abilities. The fish counter vendor, an elderly woman with her head covered, greets the young people. William looks at the counter and can't help noticing how appetizing the fish looks. What kind of broth does the fish seller make? When William hears broth, he thinks it's good. Getting soy sauce would let us make sashimi and sea muses, but in this world, people do not usually eat raw fish. He keeps reasoning, thinking about soy sauce and miso, and considers that if soybeans can be grown in a field, they might be able to make miso. Lost in memory, William realizes he misses his grandmother's cooking from his childhood and interrupts Agnes's reverie by asking what happened. She snaps back to reality and says it's nothing special. Since regaining his past life memories, he has felt a strong pull toward Japanese food. After leaving the market, they spot a fishing schooner unloading its catch and approach the unloading site, where one of the fishermen meets them. William rummages through the boxes with the catch, sees something and screams in surprise. He asks if it's a kraken. The fisherman replies that small krakens live in the local waters. They head to the northern seas in winter and reach large sizes, he continues. I ask if they eat this, and the fisherman answers no, saying no one would eat something that awful and they just keep getting caught in the net. The krakens eat the fish in the nets, so there is nothing left but to grind them up and use them as fish food. William thinks it's a pity. After thinking it over, he asks if he can take it, and the fisherman replies that he can if he needs it, and asks what he plans to do with it. William takes the kraken with him, grinning. Right now, a large catamaran pulls up to the shore, making a grinding sound. Shouts rise from the shore. Mr. Saxon has returned. People cheer. Now that he's returned, Saxon confidently steps off the deck of his ship. On returning, the girl throws herself around his neck. Saxon asks if Sonal behaved while he was away. The tall young man who greets Saxon says, "Welcome back, father." And Saxon replies, "Ganel, thank you for looking after the house." Sonal and Ganel ask together whether they will actually see William. In the yard by the hut, William is working with a couple of gears and thinks he'll have to build a windmill to get them to turn, while Limit watches from behind him, noting he just returned from Haybart and is already making something and wants to know what he's doing. A few moments later, just as MC is about to answer, quick footsteps are heard, and William, at his limit, listens in confusion about who it could be. At that moment, a short brunette girl runs in and rushes to hug him. She calls out, "William, Sonal!" He recognizes her and hugs her back. William is greeted by a tall, dark-haired young man. MC asks Ganel why he is here and rushes toward him. Limit's expression changes, and she looks very unhappy and does not hide it. William asks what happened to Limit and then greets Rudy, saying it's been a long time. Sonal addresses the eagle owl as it flies up. William gathers everyone in the house, asks for a minute of attention, introduces Sonal from the Jade Island and her older brother Genel, and the guests return their greetings. Sonal explains that when her father returned from his trip, he asked her to help William, which is why she is here. Ganel adds that he also wants to be useful to Mr. William, and William asks what that means. Limit, who is present, says Kirishima leads the Saxons. William asks how she knows about them. Limit says her father recently reached out to all of Williams's former clients, including Saxon. They had gathered at the Everett family estate and were likely talking about William. She understood they all wanted to help him. Help William think. Sonal says that as soon as his father heard William was going to work, he told William and his brother to come and help, and he also ordered that an order be placed for gondolades. William considered it. Limit says his father probably told other clients about his situation, so there may be more guests. William starts to understand. He finds it comforting that even after leaving the Barnett Guild, people still need him, and he understands. He no longer expects his second life to be spent in silence making all sorts of things. Looking at the whole company gathered in his hut, he expects it will be quite noisy in the future. Gantel steps in and asks what William just made. MC says he arrived just in time and asks if Ganel can help a little, and Ganel replies, yes, of course. Limit and Sonal stand by the window. Ganel, clearly interested, asks what is going on. William says it's a secret for now and laughs. Sonal says his brother lacks skills but loves to tinker and always learned from William. Ganel and William approach the gear mechanism. Ganel examines the gear surface and is surprised to see it uses the same processing William recently taught him. Exactly. Ganel remembers and confirms MC. They use logs to make things. After some time, William is surprised when it is almost ready. Agnes approaches and says she is going into the forest to gather food. William worries if she will be okay. She tells him not to worry. Ganel asks Sonal to go help Agnes as well, and Sonal agrees. They are asked not to go too far into the forest. Someone wants to ask William a question but is too afraid to. William notes that she wants Limit to go with him too, and he worries it could be dangerous. But Agnes promises to take care of Limit's safety and says Sonal will be with him. The three of them head into the forest to hunt. In the forest, Agnes spots the prey, pulls the boasting boo, aims and shoots. Sonal says Agnes is an excellent archer. She goes to collect the loot. Limit peers into the deep forest and sees glowing lights in the dark that look like animal eyes. A battle-scarred wild boar with massive tusks steps out of the darkness. She screams as loud as she can, Agnes. The boar spots the stranger and prepares to attack. The stranger lunges towards Limit. Now the woman is screaming at Agnes, but Sonal manages to run up, leaps to intercept, and kicks the boar in midair, sending it bouncing back. At the end, if she is okay, she replies in a frightened, slurred voice, "Yes, thank you." Agnes rushes up to them. At the table by the hut, William and Gannel are talking. William is surprised that Zaxxon sent 2 assistants at once. Sonal came too, though one Gannel would have been enough. Gannel says Sonal insisted on meeting William herself. This fact surprises William. This will continue. Jade Island has special minerals so many people visit. When William arrived on the island, he wasn't interested in the minerals' value, and instead turned the luminous local shells into useful products, sharing tools and practical knowledge to improve life. Gannel says William knows how to win people over, that Sonal reached out right away and was the first to make contact, and that she was open and sincere from the start. Gannel says she has a keen eye for people, Sonal has strong intuition, and William has proven to be dedicated and seems to genuinely enjoy his craft. Because of Sonal, even his father began to trust William, since his daughter had opened up to him and William understood. Gandalf shouts, trying to explain that he wants to help and can handle it. That thought made him rush to help William, the general concludes. Hearing voices, William says they seem to have returned. They turn to see the girls coming back with impressive trophies. Limit beams. Sonal moves briskly, carrying the huge carcass of a wild boar. Agnes walks with them, calm. Sometime later, at the city market board, amid calls of, "Welcome, come on in, dry crack, and come on in," Gannel and Agnes are trading, surrounded by a crowd of surprised and curious customers. At the estate, Limit watches the windmill turn and marvels at how quickly it was built. William and Gannel built a dryer to produce dried cracking. After the work, William thanks Gannel because he could not have done it alone. Gannel says he learned a lot about gear processing and is grateful. MC thinks using bearings in the rotating areas would improve the design. Ask Gannel if those were bearings. William answers that they are the parts with balls that improve rotation. At the market, an older buyer demands to know why the hell this is a dried kraken, and Sonal says it's delicious and immediately starts biting into the kraken's carcass. Limit places a dried crack and a paw on a plate for the customer and offers him a helping. The man takes the paw, bites it off, and savors it, saying the more you chew, the richer the taste. This tasting draws many buyers who call out for 1 or 2 samples to taste the new product. A voice behind him says, "William, this place is full." William turns and sees Markham standing in front of him. He continues, saying it is surprising that dried cracking can be turned into such a delicious treat. William remembers events from past years and says he saw something similar in a port city. MC tells the mayor that when preparing the kraken, they spin it to dry it quickly, and frying it a bit longer makes it very tasty. William mutters, lost in thought, "I wish I could pour some soy sauce on it." The mayor asks again whether Alfie is involved. William replies that it doesn't matter. Trading was active that day. As evening fell, a cool breeze came in from the sea, and William strolled along the shore with Rudy on his shoulder, thinking there was always such a pleasant breeze here. Gazing across the wide expanse of water, he takes in the beautiful view. A small forest stands on the distant horizon. He believes the kingdom's capital is probably beyond those forests. The path straight through the forest will be the shortest. All the dried cracking sold out at the current fair. Everyone on the team breathes a sigh of relief after such a busy day. Limit turns to William. If the business brings in a good income, he says he will not actually sell the crack itself. "You want to sell the dryer itself?" Limit is surprised by that answer. William tells the whole team that if you dry the crack and sell it, you can make good money, but it is only money, and he wants people in the city to use this dryer to make their own fish and sell them. MC explains that if others find out and a flood of visitors begins, the business will become a local landmark and they can sell dryers to other cities. If the plan succeeds and they sell the dryers, the locals' lives will improve at least a little. Limit, Agnes, and Ganel look at William with admiration after hearing those words. A screen appears. William. Turning around, he sees Sonal saying, "Yes, you can eat him raw and attack the Kraken." Then she starts chewing the raw meat. Everyone watches what Sonal is doing with bewilderment. She reaches to eat a raw cracker. Limit tells her to stop, otherwise she will get a stomachache. Ganel tells her not to put everything in her mouth and asks where she got it. Sonal replies that maybe Fisherman Uncle gave it to her. Sometime later came the sound of a hole in the field. William watches Limit, Agnes, Gano, and Sonal working hard and thanks them all for digging up the field well. Sonal plants seeds in the beds and wonders how fast they will grow and when they will be ready to eat. William replies to Sonal, "Growing food takes a long time. It's not like crafting. Everything is different here. Watch plants grow over time and fertilize them." Sonal complained loudly to Claire that she was hungry. At that moment, a maid shouted, "William guests." The host is very pleased. This is Mayor Markham from Hubbard. They enter the hut, sit at the table, and start drinking tea. The mayor says he only dropped into the neighboring village on business for a short time, and in Hubbard everyone does nothing but talk about William's product. Dryers and pinwheels are spinning everywhere. William says more orders are coming in. "There's a lot of work to do," the mayor asks. He says it's hard to get here, a real ordeal. You have to go all the way around the forest. William confirms that such a thing exists. The mayor enjoys his tea and says thanks. William brightens and suggests we build a direct road from Hubbard to the capital. The mayor's eyes widened in surprise. William adds that this will make it much easier for potential clients to move, but we must get permission from Minister Gorey. Markham responds that this is a great idea and city residents will be delighted. They end the conversation on that positive note and say goodbye. William calls Rudy over for a minute to ask for help again. Now Rudy is ready for another journey. The whole team is assembled and comfortably settled for the flight to the capital. From high above, William surveys the surroundings, spots many buildings to the left, and points to Hubbard, which means the royal capital is on the other side. Flying closer, William says this is what he expected. A few days later, the entire company arrives in the kingdom's capital, and Ganil and Sonal walk through the streets as Sonal, amazed by the sights, is moved by how lively the city is while Ganil asks her not to lag behind. They reach a city lamppost, and Ganil wonders whether the street lamps run on glowing stones. William and Limit are moving behind them. Sonal and Gandil are very cheerful. Limit asks why they went to the capital. William says they have to submit a report and ask Minister Gorey for something. William continues, saying he sent a letter to the minister in advance and warned it would be today. MC says, looking at the friends ahead, that Sonal and Ganil came with them and had never been to the capital, so the trip would help broaden their horizons. They enter the minister's reception room and meet a smart-looking girl in glasses with long, neatly styled hair, wearing a fashionable business suit, greeting William warmly as she says it's been a while, and then telling Juris good to see you, with Juris identified as Minister Gorey's assistant. Welcoming everyone, she says the minister will be free shortly. A short time later, they enter the minister's office, where the minister sits in his office chair with a monocle in his left eye and apologizes for the wait, and William says there's no need to apologize and he's glad to see you again. The minister peers through his monocle at the visitors and asks who they are. Limit bows, greets them, and says she is glad to meet them. She is Limit of the House of Verge, and the House of Verge is very glad to see the minister in good health. William introduces himself, joined by Sonal and Ganil from the Emerald Isle, and they introduce themselves as well. The children of the Saxon chieftain, the minister of specifies, report that they learned from the letters that Mr. Freed is talking with William clients, and that William is becoming more lively. More of them will likely arrive, the minister says with a laugh, and William laughs too. Today the minister gets back to business. William, modest but excited, extends a rolled-up piece of paper in his right hand. He says he wants permission to build a road. The minister says the word road meaningfully. William spreads a map of the area on the table before the minister and says his goods are popular with Hubbard residents and that the number of customers visiting his workshop will soon increase, so he now wants to pave the road from Hubbard to his workshop. On the map, he shows the proposed road construction, comparing the existing route with the planned one. William plans to continue his journey to the capital. The minister is pleased with the plans. William explains to the minister that the only way to deliver magic or from Hubbard to the Melky's kingdom is via sea. A new land trade route will increase trade turnover. He asks whether the minister wants it. Minister Juris, attending the meeting, says this would also benefit our country. The minister replies to William that this plan has been discussed before, and clearing dense forest is a huge investment of time and money. The minister looks at the MC's face and keeps speaking, saying they would be grateful if William himself took the job, and he tries to find out whether the government can rely on him, while Juris stands behind the minister and smiles mysteriously. William waits for the minister to finish his speech and confidently declares that he could be relied upon. The minister says he is very grateful for the business proposal and, of course, gives permission for the work to be carried out, adding that he can trust William with peace of mind. The area around his home will become a kind of transit point, Gory says with a smile. The minister suddenly shifts tone, lifts his right index finger, and asks William whether he wants to found an entire village, leaving MC at a loss. After calming down a bit, Gory suggests building something like a hotel, using magic for crafting, and starting to trade various goods. Stuttering from the unexpected proposal, William says yes. Juris leans toward the minister and says something. Unfortunately, the meeting time has ended. The minister nods in understanding. Gory rises from her seat and asks William for forgiveness, while William, busy with business, tells her before leaving not to take it all to heart. All right, William agrees. Back at their hut, William is amazed. He only wants permission to build a road, but is offered the chance to build an entire village. William realizes that their scale has somehow grown, finds it interesting, and recalls the events that led up to now. Meanwhile, at Barnett's trading house, Mr. Barnett is angry again as slams his fist on the table and demands to know whether the House of a Verge is luring away William's clients and helping him. Laston enters Mr. Barnett's office and immediately says, "Father, it looks like orders from the Kingdom of Murkies are being cut too." "The Kingdom of Murkies," Barnett says indignantly. In Laston Begins, the Trade Guild has an agreement with the Kingdom of Murkies Military Bureau on priority and ports for goods, and recently some parties have become dissatisfied and are trying to revise the agreement. After hearing the report, Mr. Barnett said that the former Foreign Minister Murkies accepted many bribes, lost his post so easily and proved useless, so Gory removed him. "Wait a minute," Barnett said thoughtfully. "Maybe this Williams is somehow connected to Gary." Laston's expression shifts, but he presses on. Minister Gowrie is a leading figure pushing to revise the treaty. William is trying to destroy their company. Laston finishes. Finally, he says Minister Gowrie's name was on William's client list and starts checking it. Mr. Barnett shouts indignantly, "Damn you!" Thunderstorms are starting everywhere after several days of rain. William and Limit stand at the window watching the weather. William asks when the rain will stop. Now he sees the first tiny sprout in the Seun field. Curious and joyful, Unsanil rushes into the field despite the heavy rain. She rushes over and gently covers the small, still weak sprout with her umbrella to protect it from the bad weather. Later, Limit and William continue to look through the window at this miracle of nature with obvious delight. The Eurydian Valley has had non-stop rain for several days, and the rivers are starting to overflow their banks. Despite residents' efforts to strengthen the dams and dikes, water pressure causes them to start collapsing. Destruction of the bridge crossings begins. Now they set about cutting down the forest and building a road to link Hubbard with the capital, and William and the others start work. After a short time working, MC wipes sweat from his face, finds the forest too dense, understands why the kingdom never came here, and decides it might be worth trying something. William draws his sacred staff, Restake, and everyone around him is stunned. Limit asks if he's all right, and Agnes jokes that he might still know the art of witchcraft. William replies very seriously, saying he has a contract with the staff and believes he can use it. On arriving in the forest, William swings his staff regardless, strikes it on the ground, and commands the wind to clear a path through the trees. The entire friendly group behind him watches the scene with curiosity. A vortex immediately forms in the air. Everyone, including William, watches the process in silence as the whirlwind settles, discouraged and speechless at what they see. Let its voice urge you to ignore everything and keep working. William pauses to reflect. Never having used magic before, crafting is different from throwing fireballs. It's just a toy now. He thinks he sees him. You want to learn to perform real magic one day. William runs through everything that has happened to him so far and thinks about his chance to be reborn in this world. At that moment, the clatter of approaching hooves reaches him. A writer appears, a blond man with short hair. He flies up to the MC on horseback, asks her to admit he is the skilled craftsman William, and confirms it. The writer eagerly explains he is a Norman of the knightly order in the kingdom of Melkis, and reports an urgent request asking William to restore Aurelian's bridge. Norman explains in detail that heavy rains caused the river to overflow its banks, and the Aurelian bridge spanning it is partially destroyed and impassable. Norman is invited into the hut to talk. They sit at the table and sip tea. Norman goes into detail, explaining that the bridge is an important crossing on the highway connecting the capital to the neighboring state. There are bypass routes, but they require a long detour through the mountains, and the road is narrow, a real hardship for horse-drawn carriages. William listens and remembers how terrible the road is. Norman keeps sharing information. Minister Gowery personally requested repairs to the Aurelian bridge. Minister Gowery asks William to help the kingdom. MC says he understands everything and is leaving right away. Rudy is ready to help and, as always, prepared to hit the road. William says he is leaving and that Genel and Sonor are going with him. He is ready to make everything needed on site. Genel suggests he bring some materials with him. Sonal is thrilled by the chance for a new trip, but Limit tells her indignantly that she will not be allowed to fool around there, that she must do serious work, and that there is no reason to have fun. After they said goodbye to everyone, the three set off on their trip. Limit watches them go sadly as Rudy flies away. Agnes approaches and says, "Madam, there's nothing you can do this time." Agnes says there's little they can do for the victims now and suggests they take care of the house together while William is away. Limit keeps watching the sky as Rudy's silhouette fades into the distance. Arriving in the Eurydian Valley, William and his company are met by Juris, who says she is expecting them and has come to inspect the affected areas on behalf of Minister Gory. William greets her, and Sonal is overjoyed to see Juris greeting the group. Juris says things have taken a serious turn as they watch the river destroy entire spans of the bridge. She adds that the nearby village has also been damaged. A rescue team from the capital should arrive soon. A voice behind him said, "William," and he turned to see an elderly, gray-haired man with a beard who said they had not seen each other for a long time and whom Mr. Bird recognized as William. Mr. Burr starts to speak. Minister Gary said he asked William to repair the bridge and request extra help. William gathered the craftsmen and rushed to the site. After hearing Mr. Burr, William says the work will be much easier with your help. William turns to Genel and Sonal and explains that Mr. Bird is a carpenter and the leader of an exceptionally skilled group of craftsmen to whom he has long been indebted, and Mr. Bird says his men are ready to do anything and asks William to explain how they can help. William walks up to the Bird crew and greets them, and everyone is happy to see each other. One worker says there was a rumor William had left the barn at the guild, and he was already upset because they feared they could no longer work together. Another says he is glad they are back on the same team. The third says working with him is always full of surprises, and today feels like a real holiday. The next one says they can't wait for it to start. Surveying the wreckage, Bird says they've cleared almost all the debris, splinters and rubbish, and that the crew worked very quickly, which surprises William. The boss, a worker at the bridge support, calls Mr. Bird. He calls you over to show what he found, and William and Bird ask what's happening as they run toward him. They run to the support. Mr. Bird is surprised to find signs of deliberate damage, with broken stones at the base, and says it looks like someone tried to break the bridge support. William asks what he means, clarifies the point, and Bird says there was a deliberate attempt to destroy the bridge. After hearing the report, Juris says this bridge is an important trade route to the neighboring country, so these culprits oppose trade with neighbors and are likely opponents of the treaty revision. She continues. William is nearby and is trying to understand what kind of agreement and which opponents this information refers to. Juris says Minister Gory is now trying to amend one agreement. She explains in detail that the former foreign minister of the Kingdom of Merkis made a deal with a secret clause forcing the country to buy military and other goods only from a single company. This contract limits the Kingdom of Merkis' trade with other companies and countries. William asks hesitantly if they mean the Barnett Guild. Juris admits sheepishly that it was Barnett. William remembers Mr. Barnett's personality and says he knew it. Barnett is clearly capable of that and will do anything to keep draining all the money from their kingdom. Eurus says it can't be. Are they really building this bridge? She has no evidence, but it's likely. Bird turns to William and says they must begin restoring the bridge immediately. William agrees. Crafting includes enhancement to boost an item's stats, repair to fix broken items, and creation to make items from materials. William decides to use repair. He knows how extensive the destruction is, and repairing the bridge will be a major undertaking. It will require enormous mana and take a long time. They begin the restoration work together. Later, everyone involved in the restoration sees the repairs and is very pleased with their quality. William announces the Eurydian bridge repairs are complete and says they need to head upstream tomorrow to build an anti-mud flow dam to prevent future problems. But the construction workers involved in the repairs are puzzled about what an anti-mud flow dam is. The next day, everyone moves upstream. The MC explains a mud flow dam is a barrier that holds back logs and large rocks swept down by rain. It prevents repeated flooding along the route. Eurus says they will soon reach the headwaters. On the road, Sonal and Ganal notice a strange smell in the air. Sonal calls out to William that it looks like someone is following them. MC asks again what this means. Moving on, Ganon says they seem to be watched from afar. They've already run away. Jura suggests they could be the ones trying to destroy the bridge. At that moment, Bird, walking a little ahead, calls William to look at the situation. Moving closer to the river, MC sees a ruined log structure with torn ropes and assumes a simple retaining wall once stood there. Surprised, Liam said he never imagined that in these parts such technology is passed down through generations. He crouches and picks up the rope. William inspects the rope and notices traces of a clean cut. William believes someone deliberately destroyed the retaining wall, causing the dam to burst. Eurus listens to all of William's conclusions and says that it is awful. MC believes the new structure must be stronger to prevent this from happening again to the village at the foot of the mountain. He tells everyone not to waste time and to get to work. Ask them to collect stones and wood from the materials. Now footsteps are heard on the hill, and a voice calls from above, "Stop!" A crowd of men of all ages and wearing all kinds of clothes shouted at William and his companions. Were they on their territory? Eurus believes they are bandits. William asks whether they were the ones doing the surveillance. The hooded bandit shouts that William and his group broke into their territory, and the bandit with the mohawk asks whether the bridge collapse was their fault. Asked about surveillance, the hooded man says he doesn't understand what we're talking about. All the robbers shout in unison. There is no point acting superior in their territory. If you value your life, they will demand everything you have. Having said that, they rush to attack William and his companions. Sonal jumps up and knocks the first robber off his feet, leaving the others shocked. Mr. Bird calls his master's forces forward into battle. Close quarters combat begins. Sonal and Ganel charged into battle. William watches the beer team's builders and finds them very strong and powerful, surprised at how good they are. Close quarters fighting continues. The bald bandit grabs the jurist by the neck and holds a knife to her throat, and she tries to call William for help, but the bandit demands she stay quiet and behave. A jurist for William's C is being taken hostage, screaming in despair and unsure what to do. With Sona and Gano far away fighting their opponents, he looks around and sees a battle in every part of the battlefield, so everyone else is busy too. William realizes he can't use his skills in a fight and considers his options. A sudden noise draws attention as a girl with a spear steps onto the battlefield. She orders the robber to release Eurus immediately, and brands him a pathetic scoundrel. Watching this with curiosity, William recognizes the girl. The robber turns his attention to the fighter girl, asks what she wants, then rushes into battle with her. The girl dodges the attack and thrusts her spear into the bandit's back, sending him down face first, while Sonal and Ganel watch and are pleased, and Bird and the brigade are also worried. Rushing to Eurus, the girl asks whether everything is all right. Eurus thanks the girl for freeing her. William runs up to them and shouts a keynote. Surprised, Eurus asks how the stranger knows William. Recovering from a fight, a beautiful brunette asks for forgiveness and introduces herself as Kino Tachibana from Moonlight. One of the masters tries to remember Moonlight. Then another adds that they're the strongest group of adventurers everyone is talking about. Aquino replies, confirming she is the daughter of their leader, Ari Tachibana. So that's it. No wonder where such power comes from. Bird exclaims. Simply cutie, Sonal cries. William asked if she was surprised and how she ended up here. They want to know if something's wrong with Snow Peak. He means the spear. Aquino studies the saber, twirls it in his hands, and says this little blade is still sharp. She says her mother told her William was having difficulties, so she rushed to help. William heard the Averg family is poaching his clients, and wonders if they have really reached the Moonlight Group. She remembers that when she began her journey, she first stopped at his new house. She met a Verge's daughter there, asked her about everything, and then went straight to the Oridian Bridge. Finding them at last, she saw some bandits up to no good, so she lay in ambush and waited for the right moment. William understands the situation, and Ganel, who is nearby, adds that the smell came from her. Aquino is furious at those words and tries to explain that she ran as fast as she could, which is why she was sweating. William Combs is down and says it's not like that. Sonal simply has a good nose. In the end, everything worked out fine. She joins the conversation. At that point, Bird asks what to do with them and points to the tied-up bandits who demand to be untied immediately. Eurus appears alarmed and flushed and thinks she should first accompany them to the capital in a friendly manner, then ask them a few questions. They are all on the riverbank. Water splashes as William thinks. William wants to start building the dam as soon as possible. Whatever happens, William must deal with their guests first. They have fixed the Oridian Bridge, so it's better to continue the work tomorrow. William suddenly spots a keynote. She leans over the tied-up robber she defeated, tries to wake him, and orders him to stand. When the robber comes to, he has no idea where he is and remembers walking through a flower field with his granny. Aquino smiles at him. Sure, she hid him only lightly. Looking him in the eye, she tells him he must end this business before it's too late. William watches what's happening and remembers the events of the past few days. When the thief who stole the equipment from Moonlight was caught, William watched Eri Tachibana punish him as she beat him severely and ignored his pleas for mercy. Stepping in, Aquino demanded her mother stop torturing her. Eri said the scoundrel was a thief who had stolen the equipment and it would not be so easy. Aquino tried to defend the thief, suggesting he might have good reasons. Eri said that for adventurers, gear is a matter of life and death, so stealing it is like trying to kill them, but Aquino disagreed. William wanted to step in, but the Moonlight Adventures stopped him and said it was better not to approach at the moment. The thief begged for forgiveness, but Eri Tachibana kept gagging him, whipping him and trying to strangle him. Suddenly, a keynote rushed over to the thief and asked if he was okay. Eri tried to stop a keynote. The thief keeps begging for forgiveness, crying that his son recently went blind and that he heard of a famous healer in the capital but couldn't afford treatment. After his wife died of illness, his son had no one left but him. He pleads for mercy, drops to his knees, and bows his head. Seeing this, Aquino thinks. Eri refuses to believe the words and demands they stop talking nonsense. She is very angry. Aquino approaches the cart with the property, pulls out an object, and walks up to the thief. Aquino returns and says, "Take this, one of my collectible weapons. It has no name, but it can fetch a lot of money." Moonlight's leader tries to stop her, but Aquino tells him the items are ones she collected as a hobby and will not affect the group's combat ability, and then she hands the weapon to the thief. Mary asks Aquino whether she truly believes this man, and Aquino says her heart tells her he is not lying. Eri paused, thought about the words, and left. A few days later, William met Aquino alone and asked whether Ari had apologized for the incident. Aquino asked again whether he meant mother, and MC said Eri received a thank you letter soon after the incident. A report said the robber's son received treatment and regained his sight. Aquino hears this for the first time and is very happy. William gives you a new weapon he made. Aquino picks it up, admires it, and calls it Snow Peak. William says Mrs. Eri personally requested it, and Aquino is very surprised. MC narrates, sometime after that incident, Arya invited him for a talk and told him to make a worthy weapon for the party's next leader. Looking him in the eye as she said, William carried her hopes and the order would not be easy. Ari said she wanted a keynote to take over her business in Moonlight, and was confident it would become even stronger. Her kindness and empathy let her understand people, and the Moonlight grows stronger in her presence. Hanging on William's every word, Aquino can hardly believe it. Grateful for the weapon she received, she promises to care for it. Back in the Eurydian Valley, the scene opens near the restored bridge. William called together all the builders who had worked on it, and decided to show them something. Aquino, expecting this, asked what William had in mind. William said they would see and told Sonal to come forward. On the bank, he had built a small model of the riverbed with barriers across it. Sonal pours buckets of water and it rushes down, carrying stones, branches, and debris. William explains he built the model to show how a mudflow dam works, holding back stones and trees while letting water and gravel flow through cracks. Everyone present watches with interest as the structure works, and William explains how the dam serves its long-term purpose. Ganel suddenly spots something in the distance and shouts for William to look. Everyone turns toward where he pointed and watches huge, orderly columns of people coming toward them. At the head of the column, Norman appears and announces he has arrived with reinforcements from the capital, and William orders the village to be rebuilt. Now in the Barnett Guild. The guild workers sit at a table playing cards, and the youngest, a blonde, says it's boring. An experienced worker, Williams's former partner, a bearded brunette, agrees there are fewer orders, and the blonde asks whether everything will be okay. Mr. Barnett stares out his office window, clearly displeased. Meanwhile, he crumples an important document in his hand. The front door creaks as he enters the office and addresses his father. Mr. Barnett walks around his desk and sits in a chair, then finally says that the Oridian Bridge has been restored and asks if it is happening too fast. Mr. Barnett, seated in his chair, reports that it appears Minister Gowrie hired this scoundrel, perhaps William, and offers that as his final suggestion. Barnett, head down, says the bridge has been restored. Trade with other countries is now possible, and the Kingdom of Merkies will certainly break their secret treaty. Laston spreads his arms wide and asks what his father should do. His father tells Laston not to rush and says he needs to think carefully. Mr. Barnett paused briefly, then smiled and said, "Let the Kingdom of Donal and the Kingdom of Merkies start a war. I was the last one here and don't understand what this is for." Barnett says war creates a need for many weapons, and that's true. It raises the question of who makes weapons for Donal. Finally, thank you. Barnett grins and says their company makes the weapons. Laston smiles and says that father is as resourceful as ever, and Barnett coughs and declares there will be a lot of work Laston. Life is flowing in the Eurydian Valley. After the bridge was restored, they built an anti-mutt flow dam. Norman thanks William for his work and says the Ardane Bridge and the weir upstream are now complete and Minister Gary will be pleased with the speedy restoration. They look at the deserted fields and forests from the top, and Rudy raises them too. William says they still need to get people back to normal life, but it will take a long time. Norman replies the rest will be their job. "You're standing behind William, William." Turning around, he sees Mr. Beard standing before him with a group of men. Mr. Beard introduces William to them. A short-haired blonde with an open, friendly face steps forward, greets William, and introduces himself as Creed, a resident of this village who thanks him for helping with the repairs. He says Mr. Bird said William is reportedly building a village. Surprised by the treatment, William gathered his thoughts and said that halfway between the capital and Hubbard there is no village, only his farmstead. The local men keep going. They want to make a request. With hope in their eyes, they ask if William will let them settle in his village. MC-related stuff. A heavy downpour washed away their fields and wiped out their cattle, and they do not know when they will be able to return to work in the fields. They would stay in their village if they could, but they need food. They heard Mr. William was starting a village and thought their experience would be useful there. William was pleased to hear this and said he would be very glad to have them, since he only recently started gardening and is a beginner, so their help will be very useful. All residents welcome the municipal council's decision. William says he'll start building houses for them right away when he gets back. A voice behind him asks if we've forgotten and if anyone remembers. He turns around and sees a bird squinting in front of him. He says William has a cool craft, but being alone is hard. Before retiring, the bird is ready to help build a new village. Hearing voices, Bird turns around, sees the master builders approaching, and says they also want to work with William. William, be the first to help. MC thanks them sincerely for everything, and Bird assures the builders they will not be bored. Together they stand, taking in the results of their work in the Eurydian Valley, and new things await them. William notes that his new village has new residents, and he is very happy about it. At William's hut, Limits sits alone at the table with a cup of fresh tea in front of her. But she has no appetite and feels like crying from boredom. Agnes tells her William will be back soon. She looks out the window and calls out happily, They're back. Limit, let's go meet them. Limit jumps out of the hut, happy, and shouts, "Welcome back." William announces his return and points to the people around him as he asks to meet the village's new inhabitants. Limit is stunned. The surprise caught her completely off guard. Aquino steps forward first, saying she's glad to meet you and to start working together today, and Limit, surprised, says you're from Moonlight. He soon regains his senses and says he is glad to meet her. Aquino greets her in return. William shows the new tenants their future home, points toward the distance and says the royal capital lies there, then points in another direction. Construction of new houses in the village has not picked up. Aquino and Agnes are busy harvesting timber for construction. The maids, joking and having fun, are busy washing dirty clothes and linens. Gantel notices William standing on the construction site, lost in thought, then approaches MC and asks William what happened. William is deep in thought and asks Ganel if he remembers the bandit attack. The memory of that attack and how they had to save Judas runs through his mind, and he admits he doesn't really know how to use a sword or magic, but thinks some kind of weapon for self-defense wouldn't hurt. Given that, he decided to use the magical ore to make something. William holds a spearhead-shaped piece of ore and says he got it from a certain place and that it can absorb magic. Ganil admires it, and the MC says he decided to make a knife and asks to see it. He begins to spin the magical piece, and after a moment it turns into a sharp knife. Ghana watches the magical transformations in great surprise. William holds a knife at the ready and says that if the enemy has no magic, the weapon loses its special ability but remains deadly. A crash interrupts them, and William and Gandalf stop talking. Limit is falling backwards with the buckets she was carrying, and William runs to her and asks if she's okay. After getting up, she explains she was carrying water for the garden when she tripped, and William and Agnes help her to her feet and calm her down. William examines the path along which Limit carried water. William realizes the water is far off and the road is in poor shape. Gano runs up and starts a conversation saying they're going to raise cattle and the farm will need much more water, and William agrees. After some thought, he decides it's time to bring water to the village and announces it to everyone. Everyone still wants to know how to do it. MC says they'll build a water wheel. Bird is here and joins the conversation. The water wheel is a great idea. Gantel shouts, "Let's get straight to crafting." William says dreamily that they have enough wood, but not enough metal parts to make it. He adds that they must go to the capital to shop. Aquino immediately announces she will join William, and the MC is taken aback by the sudden decision. Limit is shocked and shouts hysterically that he will go to. Use Rudy's abilities and head to the capital. In the kingdom's capital, they walk along the shopping streets. First, they visit a metal goods shop. Then they go to a bookstore where William buys technical books needed to study the design of water wheels and other mechanisms. Finally, they buy other items at the city market. Evening falls and William looks surprised. The shopping took much longer than he had planned. They bought many things, including seedlings for the garden. Limit joins the conversation. Leaving the market, William says he doesn't want to go home at night, and Rudy finds it hard to fly at night. He feels they should rent a hotel room and spend the night in the city. The girls have no objections. They head to the nearest hotel, and once there, William approaches the administrator to ask if any rooms are available. He mentions a separate room for women, but says the common room will do for him. The administrator, a respectable man with a thick beard, nods in understanding. Not everyone can be together, so that creates a limit. A voice behind me says, "Mr. William." William turns and sees a smiling jurist standing in front of him and asks why she is here. Jurist says, looking down at the floor, that the guard reported their arrival as soon as the guard saw them at the Capitol entrance, and she went after them immediately to talk about the incident on the Iridian Bridge. William says he understands. MC turns to Limit and Aquino and asks them to settle in and rest while he goes away on business. Yes, they respond with consent. William and Eurus go to the bar, sit at a table, and Eurus puts a glass of beer in front of him and starts a conversation, saying it's been a while since they drank together. "You are right," William agrees. MC says he was expecting a normal dinner and a sip of beer. Jurors remember the robbers from that day. Eurus says the interrogation revealed the mercenaries were receiving instructions from a raven familiar. "Familiar," William says meaningfully. "They have a familiar," he continues. "So this is a witch. She is their leader." Eurus replies that it is not known yet. A secret pact between the kingdom and the merchant guild shows Eurus was not only beneficial to Barnett. This affected not only their interests, but also everyone around them. and Jura continued that many people probably viewed the minister planning to revise the deal with hostility. William continues, saying if Barnett is behind this, he won't just show his tail. Juris says a conference to revise the trade treaty is coming soon, and security in the capital has been increased, but she worries opponents may try to sabotage it. She says the minister opposes measures to strengthen the guard and prefers to deepen cooperation with other countries and regions to enrich the country, and she wants to help him. Juris starts to panic and shouts at William, asking if he understands what they're talking about. I understand. He answers with a smile, but she won't calm down. MC realizes the jurist's bad addiction is beginning to show. He doesn't want to drink. Ask a somewhat tipsy jurist. William knows that when she gets drunk, she pesters everyone. He nods and admits he does drink. Jurisob says she just wants everyone to be happy and hates people who try to hoard all the wealth for themselves. They remain at the bar while the jurist demands he keep drinking. He pretends to agree. William sees the whole thing as alcohol harassment. After drinking so much alcohol, MC got very drunk. Morning finds William feeling awful with a sore head. He barely drags himself to his hotel, remembering the jurist had made him stay with her until dawn. The next morning, as if nothing had happened, she rushed off to work saying she had a meeting to prepare for, and he could not believe she was able to go to work after such a night. Good morning, William. Limit and Aquino had already greeted him at the hotel. Limit added that he looked like he had just come back to life. After hearing those words, William came to his senses. This is how their shopping trip to the capital ants went. They all returned to the village together on Rudy. They start construction immediately. William starts building a water wheel, a large wooden wheel with paddles on the inside and buckets on the outside to lift water. William explains the first step is to build a dam in front of the water wheel to raise the water level and increase the water pressure. Buckets on the wheel scooped water and poured it into the trough. William continues explaining. Water will run down the gutter into the catch basin, and Ganel, already at the gutter, wants to know exactly when that will happen. You can hear water running through the gutter, and Ganael exclaims with joy that they now have water for the cattle. Water keeps flowing, and now fills the canal the residents built. William is very pleased. Now the fields can be watered to their heart's content. MC thanks Mr. Bird for helping build the dam and canal and says everything worked out because of him. Mr. Bird replies modestly that there is no need to thank him. The fields and cattle will be fine now. The bird continues on happily. William replies with satisfaction. Everyone around him is happy too. This is a strange sound. Ganel says he heard something. William confirms it too. Someone shouts, "Let's go!" Everyone runs toward the noise, and Limit calls out, confused, wondering what happened. A keynote also sets limits to follow. On the sheer wall-like bank, an unfamiliar long-haired girl hangs, clutching a twig with all her might. She asked someone for help. William runs onto the shore, rushes to the cliff to check if the girl is okay, says he will help now, and orders Gandalf to pull the vine he is watching. Gantel completes the task quickly. William calls it excellent. Tying himself to the free end, William descends toward the girl like a professional climber while everyone else pulls the vine to help him. When he reaches her, he grabs her, and they are pulled to shore. Kneeling and frightened, the girl says she slipped and fell off the bank and expresses deep gratitude for the help. Aquino wonders what she's doing here in a place like this. The girl asked if she could help them. Unidentified people invaded their village. William handles the news about the village invasion. They ask the girl if the village had been attacked. William is wondering why this happened. The girl introduces herself as Slay from the village of Tast and says a witch's family lives on the outskirts of her village. William considers this. Slay continues, saying that one day the girl's mother, a hereditary witch, said she had run out of potion ingredients and needed to go out to gather more. She left her daughter with the village elder and his wife. It was not the first time. Yesterday something unexpected happened. Several men armed with axes and knives broke into the headman's house and kidnapped the child. Bandits surrounded the entire village. Slay says she waited for the right moment and got away. Kneeling before William and his companions, she says she is on her way to the capital to call for help. Longing to contact the knights as quickly as possible, she presses on anxiously. After hearing this, Beard says it will take several more days to reach the capital, and it will take even longer for the knights to arrive at Kino Opines. William notes a conference is underway in the capital and all forces are focused on security, so it is unknown how many knights can be assigned. Ghani adds, Did the attackers deliberately choose that vulnerable moment to strike the village? William suspects the witch is involved and remembers a recent talk with Eurus. He believed that some clearly wanted to block the treaty revisions, and Mr. Barnett came to mind again. William asks Slay to help him reach the village. Slay understands why. MC sees her confused look and says he will save her village. William calls on the keynote speaker, Sonal, and Ganel and says they will help together. He turns to the bird and asks if he can contact the order. The bird replies that he can, of course. He expresses his desire to go with the bird to the capital. The bird is surprised by this. William tries to stop her, but Limit says they'll reach the capital faster on her horse. William offers no argument. And at that moment, Agnes speaks up. Mrs. Limit's connections in the knightly order will be useful, and she is certain of that. Beard confirms the Averg family's daughter clearly holds great authority. William accepts the arguments. He turns to Limit and says he believes in and trusts her. Limit replies, she is happy to help. Agnes, Limit, and Bird rode at once to the capital on the ladies' horses. William, Aquino, Ganel, and Sonal, joined by Slay and aided by Rudy, set off toward the village of Tast. Soon they're on the village outskirts. From a small forest, William and his companions survey the village surroundings. MC hands Rudy to Slay and tells him to run if necessary. Slay agrees. The group heads for the residential buildings, and as they approach the village fence, Gantel sees guards at the entrance. Aquino goes first and suggests going ahead at William stops her. He believes they don't know how many bandits are inside. Smirking, he suggests making a bandana from his gloves. Someone asks what good that would do and suggests asking Sonal. MC says he has a great idea. MC smiles. He announces it will be called Operation Reunion and watches with tears of joy. The whole company waits wearily to see what will happen next. At the gate, the guard is a fairly young blonde man who looks bored and even yawns, indicating he wants to sleep. Disguised as locals, William and Sonal approach him. William says, well, here's the village of Tast. Hearing their voices, the guard reluctantly turns toward them. We're here, brother, Sonalik says. Yes, it looks that way, William agrees. Everyone else watches from their hiding place. Aquino, watching closely, says she doesn't like the idea. Nearby, Ganel asks whether the bandana was invented to hide Sonal's ears. A guard walks up to William and Sonal and asks if they are locals. He says the village is closed and orders them to leave. William asks him to wait. He explains they heard a rumor that their missing mother lives here, and he and his sister traveled a long way to get to the village. Sonal asks plaintively whether they will see their mother, and William replies cheerfully that they will. William says sadly that their mother left them at a church shelter when they were very young. The guard joins the conversation and says she must have had her reasons. Sonal begins to cry. The guard became nervous and was so moved by the story that he even shed a tear. William and Sonal did not expect such a reaction. Crying, the guard says William had to protect his little sister constantly, and they survived as best they could, like two abandoned kittens, and he wipes his tears with his sleeve. He says he understands them and will help look for their mother. Is that true? William and Sonal ask together. The guard wipes his eyes and says he grew up in an orphanage too. No one understands their feelings better than he does. He opens the gate for William and Sonalin. From the sidelines, Ganil says in surprise that the Kino ads worked. The guard escorts William and Sonal into a detached, deserted house. On the way, he warns that if it becomes known he let anyone besides the villagers in, they will all be in trouble. Inside the house, the guard tells them the house is empty, and they can watch what's happening around them from there. And William and Sonal thank him for his help. A guard opens the window a little and announces that it's lunchtime and everyone is going outside. And he suggests checking the crowd to see if the person they're looking for is there. A command to line up rings out on the street, and an announcement says food is being served. William watches from the window, looking at the house next door and wondering if the villagers are being held captive there. The guard asks if he recognizes anyone. William says he cannot be sure. The guard mocks him, says he has lost his memory and does not remember his relatives, then softens, noting William was only a child and has only faint childhood memories left. The guard says life, from his point of view, is not easy, and he understands that, and at that moment Sonal shouts, asking where the witch is. The guard grows suspicious and asks again, "Are they interested in the witch?" William works to shake off his doubts. He tells them their mother said a witch lives in the village and apologizes for their behavior, then says his sister always dreamed of seeing the witch and spreads his arms wide to seem more credible. The guard says the witch's daughter is being held in a hut far away. A smirk crosses Sonal's face at these words. Leaning through the half-open window to get a better look at the hut, she catches her bandana on the frame and it slips off. The guard notices animal ears on Sonal's head. This surprises him. He insists they are not siblings and points out that she has a tail. Sonal grabs her head. William is tense. From behind he grabs the guard, presses a palm over his mouth and orders him not to shout. William holds the guard and calmly tells him to listen carefully if he keeps doing that. Some children will become orphans and have to live in shelters. The guard can't make a sense of what's happening. He wonders if his problems are caused by being an orphan. He explains he was lured by a gang of thugs who told him about a village where an evil lives and you can make easy money. Only he claims that anyone opposing the treaty amendments is definitely involved in the attack. The guard asks again what amendments you mean. MC explains that trade in their country is distorted by a treaty, which concentrates wealth in the hands of a few. William says a treaty revision is being prepared in the capital, and if all goes well, trade will be freer and many citizens will benefit. William says that if this agreement remains unchanged and only a select few keep living as before, inequality will grow and crime will rise. Defenseless children suffer the most as a result, and William asks the guard whether he knew that pain well. The guard considers those words. Memories of his past life come back, including how he wandered and went hungry. After a moment's thought, the guard says he can't make sense of what's happening now, but he definitely does not want anyone to suffer the same fate. He is sure about it. From their hiding place, Aquino and Ganel keep watch. Aquino asks if William is okay, and Ganel says there has been no noise yet. Suddenly, Ganel shouts that William is coming. Aquino and Ganel are watching. What is causing the confusion? William approaches the group and asks if they were worried about them. Aquino asks who else they brought with Sonal. A tall young guard introduces himself as Kenneth and says he is pleased to meet them. After speaking with William, he says he decided to switch sides, and Aquino was surprised by that. William steps in and says he'll explain all the circumstances of the decision later, but for now they need information about the village layout. Kenneth agrees, begins drawing a diagram of the village on the ground with a stick. All eyes are on him. Kenneth finishes the drawing and shows them the locations they care about. Chief among these are the village head's house and the spots where villagers gather. Kenneth points to a house just outside the village where the witch's child is hiding. William says it's clear that they must first rescue the witch's child and then free the mayor's house. They approach the lonely house guarded by two men. Kenneth approaches the entrance first and greets the guards. They greet him back and ask why he is here when he should be on duty. Ganel and Sonal appear behind Kenneth. Kenneth tells them he found two more children in the village. Ganel and Sonal attack the guards, fight hand to hand, and strike them with their hands and feet. A girl sits on the floor, tied to a post. Sounds of blows and fighting come from outside the room. She cannot make sense of what is happening. The door bursts open as William rushes in. MC asks if she is okay and says he's here to help. The girl appears frightened. Ganel rushes into the room, relieved, and says they finally found her. The man says his name is William and explains they came from a neighboring village to help as soon as they heard about the attack. Upset, the girl tries to explain but cannot. William asked what had happened. Claiming it as her staff, she picks up an object from the floor. She explains it is a magic staff her mother gave her. When she was captured, the staff lay broken. William asks her is to give him the staff. Uncertain, she hands it over and asks what they will do with it. William tells Ganel to find a branch. Ganel says he will and runs off. Soon Gano returns with a small branch and says William will show his magic now, laughing loudly. William carves a new handle from a branch, fits it onto the staff's main shaft, and fastens it securely. They repair the staff and hand it to the girl. She admires the restored staff in her hands. Kenneth, standing behind the MC, doubts that William really has crafting skills. The girl hears the question and asks. It's William, nicknamed the Jack of all trades. And he asks, surprised that she knows about him, while Ganel and Sonal nearby are equally surprised. The girl says her name is Mamiya and that her mother is the witch Marjorie. William, surprised, asks Lady Marjorie if Sonal has any idea who they are talking about. Grateful, the girl thanks him for fixing her staff and says she can now go help her mother. William asked what help she meant, and Mamiya says she heard about it from two security guards who are lying unconscious after a hand-to-hand fight. She says that while the guards were talking, one asked if they'd caught the girl's mother, and the other replied, "It's hard to believe they managed to catch that witch because she's like a monster." She wonders where her mother might be, but Mimiya knows nothing. William asked Kenneth if he knew anything, and Kenneth replied that the information was not passed down to someone of his low rank. He suggests asking the people who were in the mayor's house. William says they must go free the local residents. Near the capital's watchtower, a group of armed men has gathered. A tall, brutal blonde man shouts to the crowd, asking if everyone is armed. The crowd raises their hands in unison with a roar, revealing swords, daggers, axes, and other weapons. They also brought a custom-made cage on a cart with the witch Marjorie inside, and she is depressed, thinking only of her daughter Mamiya. The action shifts to the kingdom of Melkis. Norman arrives in the kingdom's capital, greets the guards, and asks about any news. The guard returns his greeting. He says meetings are underway in the city to review the agreement terms. They are keeping their guard up because the opposition's actions are causing concern. Horses' hooves can be heard, and Norman turns around, unable to believe his eyes. Two riders gallop up to them, and one calls out that she is Limit from the Avert family. She needs to report urgent information. In the village of Tast, events keep unfolding as William and his companions set out to free the villagers from captivity, while Kenneth leads everyone to an abandoned house and suggests they hide there for now. On the way, Ganil asks William how he knows Mamiya's mother, and William asks if he means Mrs. Marjorie. The MC says she is an incredible magician and skilled at making magical tools, and he says that when he worked for the Barnett Trading Company, she bought the materials for him to make those tools. Mamiya asks why the bandits took her mother. William says he's been thinking about this from the very start. If Marjorie isn't an easy person, maybe someone is trying to take revenge on her. Ganel turns to Mamiya and tells her not to worry. He vows to kill all the bad guys. Smiling, Aquino says everyone is with her and everything will be fine. Mamiya is feeling better and thanks everyone for their support. William looks over his entire company with satisfaction. The MC stops everyone and announces they must free the residents first, then gather information for further action. Kenneth reports the residents are being held captive in two houses. Williams suggests splitting into two groups. A team is approaching the first suspected house where the residents are staying, and the guards at the entrance look tired and sleepy. Genel, Sonal, and Aquino spot the opening and attack, and with quick, deft movements they disarm the two guards. From her hiding place, William and Kenneth watched the guards at the second house, and the MC says he trusts Kenneth to make the first move, while Kenneth replies that he understands. Leaving the house, he calls to the guards at the second house and beckons them, and they answer, recognize Kenneth, and one says he's probably skipping duty as usual. Kenneth suggests going into the house because he heard there are some hot and interesting magazines inside. The guards exchange a glance, approach Kenneth, and go into the house. The house is dark, and they don't know where to go to find the magazines. Then they are tied up from head to toe. Mimea uses capture magic. Kenneth tells Mimea to keep going. William says it's his turn to show what he can do. He says he uses salvaged metal and wood for this. Within moments, he builds a cage and puts the captured bandits inside. Inside the house, William, Kenneth, and Mimea stand completely satisfied. MC says at this rate they'll be done by morning. At that moment, Sonal enters the house. At the doorway, she says they have already captured everyone. All the bandits are tied up and guarded by Ganel and Aquino. William is amazed at their dexterity and speed. William puts the neutralized bandits into the cage he built. Kenneth looks over the team and says with satisfaction that they are all very strong and he admires them. These events have freed all the residents. Overjoyed, they began to hug each other. One of them turns to Mamiya to thank her for saving them, but she says they should not be thinking of her, and William says Slay asked the people who came to her aid for help. The man drops to his knees before William and asks how he can repay him, and William says the best thanks is that all the residents are safe and well, and asks the man to return if he learns where Marjorie is, but the man says he does not know. Aquino says they'll have to question the bandits, but the bandits insist they know nothing. They were about to attack the village and steal valuables. William asks whose orders they were following. The bandit replies the orders were given by a man they do not know. He was taking orders from someone else, so he doesn't know who leads the whole gang. Thinking it over, William realizes there are many people in the chain of command and wonders if interrogating every bandit is necessary to get to the truth. A crow appears in the sky, lands on Mia's hand, and surprises William. Mamiya says it's her mother's familiar, and MC is surprised that it connects to Marjorie. Mamiya asks the raven where her mother is. A message tells her it's an old castle in the southwest, and Mamiya realizes her mother is probably there now. William and the company got the information and decided to go to that location. With Rudy's help, the whole company heads for the castle. On the way, William thinks about the familiar crow and remembers that at the Ardeen Bridge, all the instructions came from that very crow. William keeps wondering if Marjorie broke the agreement, but he cannot believe it because she was kidnapped herself and must have had a compelling reason. Outside the castle gates, a large group of armed men has gathered. They shout that they will destroy the royal capital and start advancing. The crowd shouts that they want money for Marjorie, who is being transported in a cage on a horse-drawn cart. A hooded stranger approaches the cage with his face hidden, summons Marjorie, and accuses her of being a witch. He asks if she is ready to carry out his job of killing Minister Gory in the castle, reminding her that her daughter is being held hostage. Chained up, Marjorie asks how she is supposed to kill the minister without her magic, and the man says he will free her when the time comes. Angry about her situation and the handcuffs that bind her, Marjorie remembers leaving home some time ago to gather materials for a magical weapon and placing Mamiya in someone else's care. Walking through the forest, she heard a stranger call to her. An elderly man wore a hood. The man's face was barely visible. She asked him to identify himself. He continued and said he did not expect her to leave her daughter alone in the village and go so far away and be gone so long. Marjorie became agitated and asked him to repeat what he had said. A man stepped forward and handcuffed her. His partner appeared too, and she could not resist. The stranger said he needed her help. Then the unknown man began sending instructions, including ones about events in the Ardeen Valley, and she followed them without realizing his intent. She now realizes their main goal is the secret assassination of Minister Gory, and knows the minister is fairly selfless but still has enemies. Marjorie believes she does not want to kill the minister, but now she must decide what to do. Silently, she asked Mamiya to wait. Voices come from the sky. The stranger looks up to see what is happening. Marjorie looks up and recognizes the voice. Rudy flies overhead carrying Mamiya on his back while she shouts for her mother to be returned. Mamiya, Marjorie manages to say. Mamiya raises her staff and channels magic toward the crowd. Aquino, Ganel, and Sonal, the whole group, join the battle. A fierce battle breaks out. The stranger by the cage says it's going badly and rushes off in an unknown direction. Marjorie shouts for him to stop. Someone behind her calls her name. Turning around, she sees William standing in front of her. She asks why he is here. William says he'll explain everything later. He asks why the handcuffs are on her. She says they block her magic. William draws his dagger. Marjorie asks where he got it, and he says he will free her now. He was pleased he had made such a useful tool ahead of time. William manages to remove the handcuffs with the dagger. Meanwhile, Akito keeps fighting a stronger enemy. Realizing they are too strong and outnumber her, a deafening clap of thunder cracks across the sky and a bright flash of lightning appears. Freed from captivity, Marjorie breaks out of her cage. Brimming with strength, Marjorie declares that now that she has her daughter and her magic back, she demands the right to deal with her offenders. Armed rebels look up at the sky. A silhouette of an unknown animal appears among the flashing lightning bolts. Lightning intensifies, illuminating the armed crowd who are visibly alarmed. A fiery dragon appears in the sky, a storm crow from Marjorie's magical arsenal. Its flames engulf the rebels, and soon the battlefield is covered with bodies. William whistles at the scene. Ganil gasps in surprise and says, "Wow, wow!" Aquino is amazed by the magic. Marjorie watches with admiration. Mamiya runs up to her, shouting, "Mom!" Rushing over, she throws herself into her arms. Kneeling, Marjorie hugs her daughter and says she is very happy her daughter is healthy. Mamiya says William and the others saved her. Marjorie asks William where he's from. MC hesitates before answering. Marjorie turns to her daughter to find out whether she is telling the truth or has lied to the villagers. She says she needs to be more vigilant and worries about what she would have done if she had been captured, since she was only saved thanks to William and the others. Turning to Marjorie, William says they are all extremely happy she is alive. He still has questions. Marjorie accuses William, saying in a serious tone that if he had not left the company and had continued selling her materials for magical weapons as before, She would not have left her home and no one would have attacked Mamiya and the villagers. Speechless, William opens his mouth slightly as Marjorie laughs and says it was all a joke. The MC begins to ponder and finds it hard to believe the invader had secretly planned to kill Minister Gory. William, someone is calling his name loudly. Turning around, he sees Limit charging toward him on horseback, backed by many cavalry. Jumping off her horse, she explains they reached the village of Tast, but were told William and the others had gone to the old castle, so they came here. Norman steps in next and immediately asks what happened here. William shows him the recent battlefield strewn with bodies. After meeting and talking, the group sets up camp for the night by the castle walls and, not yet ready to sleep, goes to the walls to look around. Mamiya stares at a distant building. Akino asks her what's wrong. Mamiya says she is seeing this building for the first time, even though she has read about it in a book. It's a very large building, Gantel says hesitantly as he joins the conversation, since he never imagined the capital had a building this big. Mamiya hears the word capital and looks surprised. Ganel says William took him to the capital when he was there on business. Mamiya asks what the capital is like and says she has never left her village before. Ganon says the capital is crowded with people and offers a wide variety of delicacies, and he adds there is more. Mamiya and Ganel keep talking despite the late hour. They are oblivious to the time. A keynote and Limit who went out to look for them find them talking and watch with smiles without interrupting. William steps out of the castle gate and says it is already night outside. William sees the whole group waiting for him, looks surprised, and asks if they really haven't slept. Invited to dinner, William and Gandalf sit at the table while Agnes brings plates and says everyone has already eaten, and William thanks her, saying he is so hungry he could eat a horse. William eats slowly and explains that preparing the report for the entire Order of Knights took a long time. There is nothing that can be done because this involves a plan to assassinate Minister Gory. A keynote joins the conversation, and BMX says she's right. William says checking the details of this case will not be difficult. So far, those already questioned know nothing about who ordered the hit, and the person remains active, so tracking him down will be difficult. MC maintains this was the work of those who oppose revising the treaty as a whole, and compared with the Big Bridge case, this plan was much more straightforward because its goal was to kill Minister Gory immediately. William wants to know what force the conspirators plan to use if the treaty is revised. Marjorie comes back and says she's finished her business. Mamiya hurries over and gives her a joyful hug, and William says Marjorie has done a good job. She explains that she used her familiar and helped people who promised not to tell anyone that she had been forced to follow criminal orders, William says. Mamiya tells her mother she was very worried. Marjorie apologizes to her. Marjorie turns to William and asks whether what a girl named Limit told her about a new village being built is true. William keeps eating his dinner and pauses to say that's true, but they're only halfway through the process. Marjorie asks her daughter whether she would like to go to the new village. William even stops eating when she asks, and everyone else tenses up. Mamiya looks confused. Marjorie says that after watching Mamiya's magic today, she realized her daughter has become a true master and is very surprised by her abilities. Marjorie says it depends on whether Mamiya truly wants to become a magician. Marjorie stands beneath a lone moon, looks into her daughter's eyes and tells her she must leave the family nest and go out into the world. After a moment's thought, Mamiya answers confidently that she's ready for this step, with no doubt in her eyes. Marjorie gazes at her daughter with tenderness. Turning to William, she asks whether he has any objections. Smiling, William replies, "Of course not." Marjorie feels torn. She is happy for her daughter, but anxious about letting her go. The company is upbeat and ready for new adventures. Deep night settles over the old castle. The whole company returns to its native village and gets back to work. He laughs loudly as he says the phrase, "It's not working." MC begins teaching Mamiya magic. Mamiya uses his staff again and asks if she is doing everything right. William says magic serves a different purpose than craftsmanship. Ganel steps forward and says it is good that William is becoming a teacher. Kenneth, working in the field, watches them from afar and tells William to keep it up. Kenneth approaches Kenneth and greets him. Kenneth returns the greeting. Kenneth asks how he is doing with his field work. Kenneth says he owes all his success to William. Kenneth never imagined this life, and he says that during the liberation of the village of Tass from bandits, he was arrested and put behind bars. Former partners who had met him in the cell began accusing him of betrayal. Facing their accusations, he feared he would not survive. Then someone called out to him. William, the MC, called the representatives of a knightly order and began explaining that Kenneth had helped liberate the village. Kenneth was released only if he stayed under William's supervision. Then DMC asked Kenneth to help build the village. Kenneth continues, saying he swore he would start his life with a clean slate. At the same time, he suddenly shouted that he would follow William for the rest of his life. He turns to Gannel and asks if he has forgotten his business with William. Gannel realizes he almost did. Turning to William, he shouts, "William, we have guests!" Atkins, the unexpected guest and head of Velgen, is a bald, dignified man with a beard and mustache. William meets and escorts him to the hut. Atkins inspects the 3-story building and, surprised, says he did not expect the small hut to be turned into such a large building, and William confirms this, explaining the village is growing and they need to increase the number of homes. Atkins says the village has become much livelier, and William explains some of the new residents are from his village and invites Atkins to enjoy the village's new achievements as a token of gratitude. They go into the house and sit at the table for tea. William says he received a letter directly from Minister Gorey. Atkins notes it even made the newspapers. William says the treaty revision is in full swing. Sadly, he says that because of this, his daughter is always busy now and has completely forgotten him. A limit who is present during the conversation asks who his daughter is. William apologizes and asks if he already mentioned it. He says Atkins' daughter is named Juris, and everyone reacts with surprise and asks if that is true. Atkins enjoys a cup of tea and says his daughter is not married yet, though she's at the right age, adding fondly that she's finding her own way. Atkins asks William to tell Juris to visit her father more often the next time he sees her. Atkins then says the father had begun to look like a drunk because his drinking had worsened due to all these problems. Setting a cup on the table, he bends to the floor and says he almost forgot the gifts he brought. Atkins lifts a basket of seedlings onto the table and says they are involved in plowing and cultivating fields. William and the others accept the gift with great joy. Atkins says they often hold celebrations during the growing season to ensure a good harvest. He proposes setting up something similar in the new village. William is very interested in this idea. After some time, William gathers the villagers and tells them that thanks to everyone's efforts, the village has grown and its population has increased significantly. He adds that this is out of gratitude for the work done and to support further development. They're hosting a party. Unexpected news brings great joy to all the residents. At last, the long-awaited festive day arrives. To make things easier for residents, special market stalls have been set up on Main Street and the villages are decorated with garlands and flagpoles. William and Limit go to see how the preparations turned out and are surprised by how lively the streets are. Gannel invites Mamiya to join him for a walk. Walking down the street, William notices how well everything is organized and thinks providing space for residents who cook well was the right choice because it allowed places for guests to eat. Along the way, he meets Bird and company enjoying some local beer. They helped build the shops. William remembers he had to make the missing tools and devices himself. Gannel noticed the unusual molds as they passed a pastry shop, and William said he made them from metal for baking. Gannel tries some meat dishes and takes a portion for himself. William laughs and says they do not have octopus, only cracking. On the street, they meet Sonal. Her stomach swollen from overeating, and she is having trouble breathing. So Limit rushes to her and asks whether she has eaten too much. Archery competitions are held for fans of active recreation, and Agnes hits every target. William comes to honor the winner, congratulates Agnes on her victory, and says he expected nothing less. At the arm wrestling final, Kenneth and Beard face off as the fans watch intently. Limit asks William to step closer. Watching everything with admiration, she says it's the first time she has seen such a joyful celebration. William listens to her with a smile and says the celebration is just beginning, but Limit does not understand what he means. William turns to Mamiya and asks if she's ready. Mamiya lifts her staff and moves to the center of the square where a huge crowd has gathered, then delivers a magical strike with it. A brilliant, colorful burst of fireworks lights up the sky. All the spectators are delighted. A Limit says how wonderful. William says he asked Mamiya to use spectacular magic. Fireworks keep flashing in the sky above the village. William gazes up at the colorful display and drifts into distant memories. A mental image shows him sitting at his computer desk with empty coffee cans in front of him. Cannon fire breaks out outside the window and he turns his head toward it. He watches colorful, glowing fireworks rise above the high-rise rooftops. This all happens while he is at work in the office of a large company. Darkness creeps into his vision, and fragments of words reach him as someone calls William and sees Limit. Mamiya, Ganel, Sonal, and Aquino stand in front of him. They all kindly say in unison that everyone is waiting for him and ask him to come with them. The party keeps going and the dancing starts. William pauses for a moment, then says he is coming. He remembers thinking some time ago he was alone in the world, but now he has friends. William catches up with the group ahead and joins the dancers. Almost at the same time, someone carefully makes their way through the forest. A stranger with long hair. Dressed lightly, the girl wears a shirt with rolled-up sleeves, short shorts, knee-high socks, and short boots. Holds a sword whose blade is decorated with an unusual ornament. Steps to the edge of the forest, pauses by a tree, and watches the fireworks in the new village closely. The next morning, William, Limit, and Aquino walk through the forest to see the road being built toward the kingdom's capital, and Limit wonders whether it will be a little while longer before the road reaches Hubbard. William says that thanks to everyone's efforts we have achieved good results and must go to the capital to report on the work done. Limit starts screaming in a panic that she wants to go to the capital, and Aquino joins in, shouting that she also wants to go with William. BMC says he will not allow any more all-nighters, and Limit and Aquino are offended by William's words. "William, someone is calling your name." William turns around and sees Ganel standing in front of him. Ganel says he brought lunch. William thanks him in return. Sonal from MCS House is feeling. Ganel says, "It seems Sonal overindulged at the festival yesterday." William recalls Sonal felt unwell yesterday. Sonal's stomach was bloated and she had to go to bed. "Lemmy came to check on her." Ganel sees an unfamiliar device in William's hands and asks what it is. MC shows him the device, which looks like an electronic tablet. It claims to be a magical energy detector. Gantel, surprised, asks if William really knows how to make magical energy detectors. MC says he once saw a master magician technician make such a device, and asked Mamiya to help him build the same one. William believes many evil spirits are in their area, and that the detector will make it safer. William stands in the middle of the forest, with Limit, Aquino, and Ganel and Rudy sitting nearby, and they continue to examine the detector as William explains it is still in development because magical instruments are complex, so it currently has a limited range. At one point, glowing dots appear on the detector screen, and Gano wonders whether the glow comes from their mana. William pauses for a moment, unsure what it is. Strange noises and unsettling sounds grow around them. The detector's screen glow gets brighter and stronger. Darkness is falling in the forest. The group realizes they are surrounded by an enemy force. Monsters emerge from the thickets. Friends are ready for battle. All at once, they draw their weapons. Aquino asks William to protect the Limit, and he understands everything without being told. Aquino is first to attack a gorilla-like monster several times larger than the heroes and bearing huge fangs. Ganel steps into the fight, clearly showing his hand-to-hand combat skills. Monsters are everywhere and attack from every side. William can't understand where so many monsters came from. He thinks the most likely cause is ongoing deforestation. The tree behind William proves tricky when a branch reaches out and grabs the MC's right hand holding his dagger, and Limit sees it and yells a warning, but it's already too late. William summons every ounce of strength and tries to break free from these clutches, but he does not have enough. An unknown force suddenly cuts the tree trunk at its root. A falling tree drives the monsters away. Limit watches in dismay. Aquino and Ganel are confused. Ganel sees the monsters scattering quickly. After his miraculous release, William rises from his knees and looks up to see an old acquaintance before him. The same stranger watches the fireworks at the forest edge. William turns to her and says uncertainly, "Lydia." They sit down and begin talking. William asks if she is lost. Lydia says she is. She tells him she got information from her grandfather about his trip to Averg and his business contacts. Then she went to help William and reached the Averg estate but lost her way. Lydia says she wandered into the forest, saw lights rising, and moved toward them. William realizes Lydia saw their fireworks from the festival right then. In the end, she became completely lost. Everyone around her is listening closely now. She says she kept wandering in the forest and recently heard strange sounds, so she went toward them and came into a clearing where monsters were attacking William and his companions, forcing her to intervene. And William listened to her story and thanked her for helping. William tells his companions that this girl is the granddaughter of blacksmith Dennis. Aquino asks in surprise about blacksmith Dooney, and Gano asks with persistent curiosity about the legendary blacksmith. Lydia calmly hands William a rolled-up note and says it is from her grandfather. From Dennis? Ask the MC. William unfolds the paper, reads, "Take care of my granddaughter," and understands the message is in the spirit of Dennis. After events that happened earlier, William, accompanied by Rudy, sets off on his journey. They travel a short distance, and William starts to remember they are already near their destination. Rudy starts this week. MC asks if he wants to find out where he is going. William says cheerfully he's heading to Dennis's workshop to fill an order from the Everett family. MC says he has an idea to establish cooperation and adds that rumors say Dennis is a bit of a character who rarely accepts work. William drifts through his memories, remembering a sword Dennis made that was stunningly beautiful, and a walk through the forest when he saw a little girl. When William approached, she was clutching an unfamiliar book and crying, and MC asked if everything was okay. Right then, the girl opened the book and started reading. William realized the text was a book of spells and wondered how it had ended up in a child's hands. The girl lifted a strange sword over her head and began swinging it. William barely had time to shout, "Hold on! She's not the enemy! Don't do that!" The sword's blade was covered in exquisite decoration. The swing's momentum knocked the girl off balance and she fell unconscious. William and Rudy were frightened as dusk fell in the forest. Dennis searched his estate for his granddaughter Lydia, remembering he had sent her to the neighboring village to do some shopping, but he struggled to recall, and his memory had become very poor. Dennis sees William coming toward him, carrying Lydia on his back like a sack. Lydia rushes forward and hugs her grandfather with joy. After Dennis and William put Lydia to bed, they sat at the table to drink tea, and Dennis told them the magic book he had given his granddaughter contained every weapon he had forged. Dennis added that to make something you must know everything about it, and he said he wanted Lydia to surpass him as a blacksmith. She was shy and had trouble expressing her thoughts. Dennis looked at his granddaughter, who was asleep. He added that she takes blacksmithing very seriously because she's clumsy. Dennis then offered to take William's job to show his gratitude for saving his granddaughter. C looks at everyone gathered and remembers that his friendship with Dennis and Lydia began at that moment. Limit offers Lydia some bread and asks if she is hungry. Lydia says she is a little hungry. Aquino also offers food and tells Lydia to help herself. Lydia, clearly exhausted, thanks them deeply. The meeting and the way the day went have made William very happy. Meanwhile, at the now largely forgotten Barnett Company, events unfold. Mr. Barnett slams his fist on the table. He keeps insisting that the attack on the capital, the murder of Minister Gory, and the plan to frame the inhabitants of the Kingdom of Dal as the main culprits to start a war between the two countries were all complete failures. His son Laston stands opposite and asks him to calm down. But Barnett keeps shouting that staying calm is impossible in this situation, and that Laston should also think about all the problems. Finally, he smiles and says he has already come up with something. Handing his father a piece of paper, he says a customer has arrived, and Barnett is intrigued. Taking the paper from his son's hands, he reads it and sounds amazed to find it is the same thing. Smiling slyly, he tells his father the guest came from the sea. Barnett and Last look at each other silently. Thank you for watching. Please leave your feedback in the comments. If you enjoyed the story, please like and subscribe. See you soon.